So yeah, you know what's interesting about this, there's a point that many of us get to in our career where just things align, right? So like things that it's almost like when I'm an adjunct professor too. So when I talk to a lot of my grad students, it's like a lot of them are not doing what they went to school for, right? So are you guys doing what you went to school for?
No, sir.
So right. So and I started in hotel restaurant management. Imagine that. I wound up in technology. So what's interesting is I was in the tech field forever, started at Merrill Lynch, and then built a bunch of tech companies and eventually .com companies, built and sold. And then always, my family always had something to do with either construction or real estate. So on the side, I was always working in those fields somehow, like summer jobs, etc. So so anyway, very familiar with all that, and I was even rehabbing condos back in the days and things like that. But then fast forward, in the early technology days, manufacturers and banks were two of the sort of biggest groups that came on board. So so in that, hey John, how you doing?
Nice.
And Martin, how you doing?
Good. How's it going?
Good. Just telling a little bit of my background here. We have about 20 some odd people in the audience, so welcome to everybody. So anyway, when I got done with Merrill Lynch, I started at some tech companies, and the people that were hiring were manufacturing and very large banks. So I was in this odd spot of learning manufacturing and banks, and then when the .com world showed up and websites were developed, I always like to say my first website, John, you're going to love this. John's our most price conscious guy in the entire company. I charged for my first website that I built $250,000.
Woo! I love
So, but because those were big manufacturing companies, and they could afford that, and it was new at the time. So I've always been this bleeding edge technology guy, but always with roots in construction and other things. But I had to learn manufacturing to build those sites out, right? So fast forward, have a digital marketing company for over 20 years. We specialize in banking, real estate, commercial, real estate, residential, mortgage, anything around that, insurance, etc. So over the 20 years of doing that, got to know those industries, especially from a digital side. So Brian Custis, who's the co-founder with John for S2A, calls me up, and I had done a ton of projects since the condo boom with him. And when he called me, he goes, "Hey man, I need your help on S2A." He goes, "We're doing modular construction." I go, "Modular? What's that?" I go, because I'm in the Midwest, man, and modular to us is like, mobile homes. And he goes, "No, this is way cooler. This is way better." And I go, "All right, I got to see it. Show it to me." And he goes, "There's technology involved." So of course he got my attention. He knew how to pitch me, right? So anyway, I got to know, I know this, and I had known John a little early on in the beginning when they got together. And I saw it. And guys, I got to tell you, after working in my summers and outside construction and everything else, I'm like, are you kidding me? These builds come out of a factory, and it just blew my mind. And then, because of John, our tech genius, it's like, you look at the engineering side. Now, remember, I'm an old computer engineer, right? But you look at the engineering of the technology, the renewable energy, the smart tech, the wellness configuration of the buildings. I'm just like, this is it. I've been through 5 other IPOs. I go, this is an IPO, man. I said, I can feel it. I can see it. I can see the need. I saw the demand before we had it. And I said, I'm in, sign me up. So I hired a president to run my marketing company. And that's why I'm here, man. It was like, I was just blown away and said, I got to be part of this. I know I can help make the run get there. And I think we've done pretty good so far. So that's the short version of the whole story.
Love it. No, Dean, that's amazing. And John, do you want to go into how you walked into that scenario as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dean came in right at the right time. I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I'm a 30-year real estate developer, second generation. I learned the industry from my dad growing up and, been building houses in Southern California for 30, 40 years from when I first got started. I've been owning my own companies for the last 30 plus years, own an engineering firm, kind of how I got into modular. I was doing a lot of engineering for some big modular companies, and I was doing a feasibility study down in San Diego for a senior living facility. And this facility, when I was interviewed over 200 seniors, I kept hearing so many different things over and over of what they really wanted to see. So I came up with the idea for Bahia Village, which is kind of how, we met you guys through Jason Graham. The Bahia Village concept is net positive, 55 and over gated communities. And, we're building 350 of these communities across the country. Well, during that process, got the first piece of land, got it all entitled, went to all the big manufacturers, the big modular companies throughout the state of California, went with them hand in hand with CEOs and presidents of modular companies that I was working with, and everything looked good at first. They all wanted the business, they took my contract, but once they got in and they dug into the nuts and bolts of what I wanted to build, every one of them backed out. So walking out of one meeting in Southern California with the president and CEO of another modular company I was working with, I decided that moment that I needed to start my own factory. It was the only way I could build the product that I needed. So right before that, summer of 2015, I engineered and built the first ever or second ever Tesla powered off-grid home in North America. Most energy efficient home in the world, lowest voltage, lowest amperage, 2,500 square foot, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, Spanish style hacienda with a full family living in it. No electricity, no gas on the street, up in the hills, 18 solar panels and 2 Tesla power walls. And it runs without a hiccup, just like it's connected to the grid. Tesla tried to recreate it with another developer up north, took 40 solar panels and 8 power walls to get through the night without dying. So they knew there was something different about what we were doing. And they kept, sending engineers out to look. And anyways, at that point, we started with one factory. We just wanted one factory in Southern California to build my Bahia villages, to build some homes that my partner Brian wanted to build. But then we were doing seminars, live seminars down in La Jolla, Irvine, Palo Alto, Seattle, all across the country. Then COVID hit. And that's kind of where Brian called Dean and said, hey, I need your help, because Dean is the webinar guru. We call it Dean's Machine because it just runs lean and mean. He's been doing webinars since dial-up. So when we got him involved, we pivoted from in-person seminars to webinars in 4 days. And we were up and running. And now we're in front of a global audience. And in the first month, we got 3 orders for hotels in Northern California. And we're thinking, now we're going to build these down in Southern California, ship them up, which is not a problem. You can ship modular anywhere in the country. We've shipped, some of our guys have even shipped them from Ohio to Canada. So, they can go long distances. But we decided, with the demand the way it is, let's build a second factory up north. Then as we continued these webinars, the demand just kept growing. So we ended up revising our plan to 35 US factories. And now we've got about 8 or 9 different countries that want us to bring our factories international to help them build, net positive, net zero homes, in their part of the world. So yeah, it's been a great ride so far. And, we're just looking forward to continuing the growth.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. What would you say has been probably leading up to this point, some of the things that kind of led to that success? And then also I'd love to touch into all the ways that you guys are tackling kind of these ESG mandates and everything else that is going on with these builds, and in this company and industry?
Yeah, well, we had to, slowly build a great team. You're only as good as your team, and we feel like we have an amazing team. We had to hire a chief growth officer. One of our first hires was our chief design officer, Lance Lowry. He's been in the modular design industry for 25 plus years, was designing for many, many factories across the country. And, we wanted to get him on board and then kind of use my influence on the modern contemporary designs to get him to, he was a lot of the traditional Midwest stuff, but, we worked together to create an amazing line. It's based on technology. S2A is by far more of a technology company than a modular company. We only choose modular because we can control the environment. We don't have rain delays. We don't have theft. We don't have vandalism. And even bigger, we don't deal with the local jurisdictions for permits. Our homes are approved by the state. We have third-party inspectors in our factories 3 days a week. So we don't ever have to stop. We literally, the way the line is set up, a finished home will come off the line every 2 hours. So we can finish 4 homes in 1 8-hour shift with one line. And each factory is designed to have 2 separate lines. So, the great part about it is we can pivot. We can do everything from our SH1 model, which was designed as our solution for the homeless crisis, workforce housing, things very affordable. And then we can do custom high-end homes. We can do hospitals. We've got a Hilton branded hotel up north that we're going to be building later this year. So, we've got such a variety of things that we can use, but it's all based on technology. I mentioned that Tesla home being the lowest voltage, lowest amperage home in the world. All of our buildings are built that way. They're all built. We reverse engineered the homes. When I went to Tesla back in 2015, I met with 2 of their top engineers, told them what we wanted to do, engineer homes that were made to run on battery. Their battery was only designed to back up emergency items, medical equipment, your refrigerator, give you a few lights if there's a power outage. But we run every single circuit in the home is backed up with the battery. So we don't need grid support. So, by creating that technology, it kind of led right into the factories. So when we started building the factories, I wanted to build the lowest voltage, lowest amperage factories in the world. So now our factories are the only factories in the United States that are a complete DC microgrid. Our factory in Patterson, California, will produce approximately $178,000 a year in revenue from the excess power that we create that we can't use. Wow. We, like with our graphene solar panel, we got our UL rating approved last year. The graphene solar panel has 20 worldwide patents. We're the only people in the United States that can utilize this technology. And it really gives us an unfair advantage. It produces 38 to 42% more energy than any other panel in the world. So, you think about that. We can produce a smaller system and we can produce more power. So it's more cost effective. And it just, gives us that extra caveat there.
Yes, you said you're getting a home out in 2 hours. Once the home's actually out of the factory, how long does it take to actually construct it?
So normally, we don't start a home until they're already working on the site work at the site. So they're doing the grading, they're getting the utilities ready, they're getting the foundation ready. And by the way, we also do modular foundations. So we can install a foundation for a home in 1 day. So say we deliver a 2,500 square foot home, we can assemble it in 1 day. When we leave the first day, you can lock the home and walk away, and it's in one piece. Now, there's about 30 days worth of site work. We come in, all the marriage lines where the drywall meets, we've got to come in, clean that up, do touch-up paint. Same thing on the outside. If there's siding or stucco, we've got to complete any marriage lines. And then sidewalks and planter beds and grass and landscaping. But pretty much it's a 30-day window. So instead of watching a house be built for a year or 18 months and you see it getting rained on, the wood gets wet. What do you think happens when that wood gets wet? You cover it up and then it's 100 degrees in a month. You got stuff growing inside those walls that you have no idea what's in there. Our material is delivered to the factory kiln dried lumber, and it never goes outside until it's completely waterproof. So, I mean, it's a healthier home. And also in the factory, we use digital equipment. So all of our lumber, the whole specs for the home are punched into the computer. Every piece of lumber for that home is cut by a digital saw. So no hands touch it. And it cuts within a 1/16 of an inch tolerance. 1/16 of an inch tolerance, my 30 years of development experience, you can't do it in the field. You're moving and you're shifting things just to make things work in the field. You can be 6, 8 inches off, let alone a 1/16 of an inch. So, it really, the efficiency, and then also the materials. We use all the materials. You go by a construction site and you see those big dumpsters full of lumber and materials. We recycle down to the smallest piece. There's always going to be something on the next piece, whether it be a granite countertop or a 2x6. I mean, there's always going to be a use for those pieces until we get down to a piece that's maybe an inch or two. So, it really adds to the efficiency and the cost savings, when it comes to building homes. I mean, we've all seen over the years, especially during the pandemic, prices of construction are through the roof. And most of these people who are building outdoors, they can't get enough subcontractors on the job to even get the job done in a timely manner. We're getting people from, I would say right now, 80% of our inquiries are from developers. They need help. They know that we can speed up their process of construction. Let them focus on the site work, the grading, the utilities, getting the foundations ready. Now they can do 5-10 times more projects because they're not worried about building the homes themselves. We deliver them. They just come in, do a little bit of finish for a month, and they're ready to occupy.
John, we got a question from Ty Hagler in the audience. He said, modular foundations, wow. Does the permit process ever become a challenge?
Not really. Like I said, I mean, for the homes, it's really easy because we've got a third-party inspector that's in our factory. It's the same company that stamps our plans. So we send our plans to this third-party company, and they're global. They're not just licensed in every state in the US, but they're licensed all over the world, all over Europe, all over many different countries. So we don't have any, when we take our plans into the city, they're not even allowed to make one red pin on our plan. It's out of their control. It's at the state level. So the only permits that have to be pulled for these projects are for the utilities, the grading, and the foundation. And with these modular foundations, they're poured in a factory to same thing, 1/16 of an inch tolerance, and they use a very low water content concrete mixed with a fiber mesh. It's extremely strong, and we can even do full basements out of this foundation to where literally all we have to do is have the hole dug. We use the same crane that we would use to install the home. We crane the pieces of the foundation into place. The very next day, it's ready for the home. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's actually mind blowing because I mean, I I don't know, John, you've done a lot more homes than I have, but in the US, I found it extremely tough, especially when you get into any type of add-ons or remodeling to find a home that's true, so that you can actually marry up a deck to it, simple stuff, right? And so you start to look at these efficiencies, and that's why McKinsey predicted it's the next level of building, and it's here. It's not like we're waiting for it for decades. It's actually its time is due and the time is now. So that's another thing that got me excited too, because again, if you've ever picked up a hammer and gone in the heat and worked on any regular construction, the inefficiencies. Think about those machines cutting instead of humans. that are cold, that are trying to make those cuts, or people that are, you know, overheated and exhausted trying to make those cuts, you're at the mercy of whatever, you know, humans are on that home at the time.
So how big can you guys go?
Like I
We're
said,
talking, we're talking residential right now, but
residential.
we're talking
we
residential
just-
right now, but you know, how big can you go?
There's no limit. We can go, well, I guess didn't say no limit. We can go 5 stories.
5 stories, yeah.
5 stories with all wood. So, but it could be, you know, 10,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. As long as it's 5 stories or less, we really have no limitations.
Yeah, we're looking at large multifamily complexes, medical facilities, schools, you know, just a lot of different options for folks. Even had somebody ask us if we could do a zoo. So how about that? We could do a zoo.
I do have some curiosity around where the current market saturation around this product even is, right? Like, I mean, up until, you know, some time ago, I didn't even know that this, you know, existed, right? And I'm, you know, as a young, you know, well, 28-year-old, right? Like, this idea to me is like, I see it as the future of what my generation is, you know, probably going to be doing as far as housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Dean.
Well, no, I was just gonna say I live in the data. So, you know, so so what's interesting is, you know, you think about the demand that you see in the marketplace. We all see in the news, right? And you see that you know, there's housing shortages, there's this and that. And typically as we look at what we call the migration reports, where are people moving from and to? And, you know, there's this whole thing of people moving out of California. Well, there's just as many people moving into California that are moving out of California. So there's this whole migration in the country. And I don't know, maybe it's, who knows, maybe it's a southern border. Where are all these people coming from? I have no idea. And I said, you know, you start looking at the map and there's really no shortage in demand. And the shock to me is that we did all the common sense studies, you know, sort of call it a year and a half, 2 years ago, when we looked at markets that were ideal. And if you look on the website, we have 35 factory locations mapped out based on density, demand, and all kinds of factors, migration, you name it. And they all make common sense, right? And then, like John said, you can ship from any of those locations to wherever you need to go, you know, coast to coast until you hit an ocean. So as you look at it and you think about that, you know, right now we have about 4 or 5 mapped out in the states you would assume, which is California, Texas, Florida. But then we've got them mapped out in you know, all over the East Coast, all over the West Coast, throughout the Midwest. And then the surprises are coming in like Montana, Nebraska. And when we talk to them individually, because they'll come to us, and even though we have plans to map out a certain factory in a certain area, all of a sudden you'll be talking to, you know, we were just on with the whole state of Montana, and they're demanding a factory from us, telling us that they're in trouble. They have so many people coming there and they have no place for them to live. Or you have the migration of companies like Amazon and Teslas and things like that that are building facilities that have no workforce housing, you know, throughout Texas, throughout everywhere. So now we're in this, we're almost in a crisis of a crisis, because it's not slowing down. I mean, the good news is, you know, regardless of inflation, regardless of interest rates, people need a place to live. It's just what type of place are they going to choose to live? So, you know, where you would think the most density is, yes, it's there. There's a ton of people moving to Florida, a ton of people heading to Texas, a ton of people going to California, but you'd be shocked. Idaho, Nebraska, you know, Montana, the Dakotas. I was like, I'm looking at the numbers and they're coming on the line with us going, please pick us next. And so we have packages for those people that want full factories, that have the government on board. They can fast track and easily permit. They have the funds and they have the demand. You know, we're here to listen and serve. So does that help, Jared? Did that answer your question?
Totally. And I think it kind of goes into the next part of, we do have a few questions regarding like when or how would it be for you to go international with this business? We have some questions about Ireland, New Zealand.
I know, I was just looking at Tony's question. So what's funny is I deal with many of those calls. So, and John, we're up to 12 countries, just so you know, a little north of 12. So we just had Romania come to us with $90 billion fund. and saying, pick us first. And just like Tony says, pick Ireland, but it's no different than Montana and the Dakotas. We've got it throughout Central America, West Africa, Europe. It's almost, it's going to be interesting. So part of my background was with one of my big customers was GE Energy. So I was in the energy space, international, and then Amazon and some other Fortune 500. So I've been on weekly calls with them, starting a future cast. And so I'm thinking later this year, we're building an international team, just like you guys built an advisory board, a group of advisors that are on board that have expanded factories, locations, buildings, technology, international. And then I think it's going to be, we're going to pick the one, just like here, we got to get our first 5 factories up, then the next 30 are going to be much easier. Well, once we do that, we'll have a real good feel to what an international factory looks like, but we have to pick that first country. And so that's what I'm starting to collect data on and have the smart people determine, well, who do we pick first? Who needs it? What makes the most sense? And, I don't want to say we're gonna pick an easy one, but we need to start somewhere. So we have to think about labor, materials, accessibility, ports. There's all kinds of factors that go into that. So, while we look at this, we've got the UK coming at us, Ireland, I don't think there's not a need. I think now what's going to happen is because of the way we've educated the marketplace, it's going to bring this even more so to the forefront, because we've never marketed overseas, but we've got a huge international presence without spending a dime. It's gone viral. So I think we've created enough of an awareness where we've helped our competitors, and there's enough business for everyone because there's different products that are needed out there. Hope that makes sense.
Really does.
Have too much business, right? That's wonderful.
Well, I mean, and it's good and it's bad because now we know even more than I've ever imagined. I mean, we talked to FEMA about all these cities. Look in the US how we've had natural disasters, and they know that modular is stronger. We can withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds, and just think of the strength that John was just talking about in the foundation and everything else. They want us to build in disaster zone areas just in the US. That could keep us busy for a long time. So there's a need out there, a global need. And to your point, Jared, we need your generation to be on board with it and to continue to educate further on down the road. And that's why we're working hard, not just to educate on the surface level, but when we go into a town, like I was just into Jacksonville at the groundbreaking, and I met with everybody in the whole county, and we're working to integrate trades back into the schools. So we're doing an online academy that we're building out, but I have a true mission to make sure that we get those trades of modular construction, the solar, the renewable energy, smart tech. We need to get that into the schools, even at the high school level. It's needed.
Yeah, I'm seeing all those questions come through, and I saw the one come up about Ireland a few times, and hey, 2023 is our year. We're going to finish building out these 5 factories that we're building now this year, and then we've got another 10 to break ground on in the US next year. But we're absolutely going to pick a few factories international to do next year. So as far as the person that's commenting from Ireland, we would love to hear from you. It sounds like you said they've got money, incentives, that's all it takes. If they've got land that is zoned, they can fast track the permits. We're ready to start. It's going to take a little planning. So, we're ready to get in and start talking to those folks. And also saw or about your comment earlier about modular construction. It's been around since the beginning of time almost. I mean, we saw a picture the other day of one way back when that I don't even know when that was from, but even in California, a lot of these factories opened in the 50s and 60s. The problem is, they're still running the same way they were in the 50s and 60s, and most of them build a manufactured home product, which is not modular. It's built out of inferior building materials. They don't have the same strength and as a traditional home like ours do. So, the difference was, transitioning to an old school volumetric type modular construction, and then adding in the technology, adding in the systems within the factory to create efficiency, technology, but without going overboard. And somebody asked about our competition. There's been a few companies in recent years who have come with a similar approach. But what I'll say was their demise was over automation. Just like Tesla. Any of you that followed Tesla, which I'm a huge Tesla freak, you'll see their Model 3 line in California, it didn't become profitable until they removed the robotics because it was hindering the line. That's what happened with Katera. They over automated. They bought all this equipment. None of them knew how to use it. They couldn't make it work. It failed. They lost, I don't even know how many hundreds of billions of dollars or millions of dollars. So there's another company in Idaho going through the same struggles. You know, they built this state-of-the-art factory, all these robotics from Europe, and they don't work. So we've taken it as far as we feel can be automated, as much technology, laser systems. We even have a robot that's being built right now as we speak. It just got delivered in 3 containers in Patterson. It's a remote control robot that picks up our modular homes and carries them out to the crib yard where they're waiting for shipping. We don't have to stop the line and call 10 guys over to push this home out there. One guy with a remote control with no sweat can just pick it up, put it wherever he wants it, and get it ready for shipping. So it is all about, you know, technology, making it easier, you know, on production, and then just high quality building materials. You know, we have some of the only homes in the world. We don't even use conduit and junction boxes and things in our lighting systems. We don't even send volts. We send commands. And that's why one of the reasons they're the lowest voltage homes in the world, because of the technology inside the walls. And that technology is probably 20% cheaper than doing it the old fashioned way. So it doesn't have to cost more to be better.
No, John, that's great. You know, one of the things that that we're really focused on at Standard is, you know, impactful movements that are ground up initiatives with, you know, the community input in terms of the actual mandates that are being affected. I think this question that kind of Joe brought up here, what is your approach to designing for positive human and social systems, community well-being, kind of how can we impact kind of people with this type of build design, with the, you know, low voltage, like how does that really affect people and the way that we're doing things?
Well, look at the Bahia Village, for instance. We're targeting a certain segment of the population, which happens to be the fastest growing segment in the United States, which is the 55 and over market. There's more people turning 55 every day than any other age in the country. So when part of the reason that I went after that segment, those first 2 homes, the prototype homes that I built, they were $1 million plus homes. But I wanted to prove that this technology could be used in affordable housing. These homes, these 55 and over, the first 71 that are for sale right now as we speak, are $399,000 each. And the great thing about it, when you think about people when they are going into retirement, most of them become on a fixed income. We all know the rates that we're getting nailed with for power, and we know how much it costs to cool a home. So you live in an area where it gets hot in the summer. I don't know how many of you guys have heard it, but I hear it over and over that a lot of the elderly population, they live in heat because they're afraid to turn on their air conditioning. Our communities, they pay no power. There is no power bill. We're the utility. We are an IOU. We're an independently owned utility. We control everything, the power, the battery, the solar. We have our own energy management system that uses AI to track and monitor the grid. And when the grid is in need of power and when they're paying the highest, that's when we sell. And we offload a percentage of our large battery back to the grid. And if any of you know about solar and selling back to the grid, the average person in California gets 2.8 cents a kilowatt when you sell back to the grid. We get 12 to 15 cents. because we use AI and we operate as an IOU. So we don't sell back to Edison or PG&E. We sell back to the wholesale market. So it's a completely, that's why that factory in Patterson can produce $178,000 a year in income and supply the factory with 100% of the electricity it needs. We don't pull any power from the grid, and our homes are safer. We don't have gas. We don't have propane. They're 100% electric. They're not going to have a gas explosion. You're not going to have carbon monoxide poisoning. So, and then on top of that, we are in R&D agreements all over the world, Europe, the United States, on creating organic building materials. That's been one of my heavy pushes for the last 2.5 years. I challenge engineers and scientists every day on creating the best new hemp-based organic building materials. We're making our own drywall mud, our own stucco, our own lumber, things that give us such a huge advantage over the rest of the builders in the country. And we're starting to share that technology. We've had so many people who want to get our solar panels, our technology, our organic building materials. So next month, we're kicking off the S2A marketplace, which we talked to you guys about, about using with StandardDAO. But anyone that wants to come in and purchase our graphene solar panels, our S2A UL rated 420 watt panel, or any of our other technology, they'll be able to buy it directly from us at a very competitive rate.
So we've got, supply chain issues. I see that Ahmad Tahir, he wants this one to go. And I think it's a good question, specifically in terms of how does supply chain kind of impact your process right now? Does your process, support kind of the issues that we have on the global kind of shortages? And then also specifically, how do finished materials play a role in this process?
Hey, Aaron, before we go to that, can we finish the one other question? Because I want John to comment on this. This is hugely impactful. There was a wellness question in there, and I think that's one thing that we really need to touch on because of COVID, because of what we've been through in the last 18 months. So one of the things that was, it wasn't a sleeper from a design perspective, but I think one of the virality factors that we had during COVID is that, our builds are well certified. We're part of that advisory board for well. So when you start looking at the health of the homes and the wellness of how people live, we're at a different level of consciousness than we used to be. So like John said, there isn't I would wager to guess that over 70% of the homes in the US have a mold issue, and it's not talked about, right? So mold alone, right? Just because they're enclosed with that, and then the circulation system are all duct based. But we use mini split systems. We have organic materials that we use as part of the drywall and the insulation and things like that. And you start looking at the envelope of the home, and now you're securing a home. Well, are you doing the envelope of the home with mold to keep it on the inside, or are you creating it so that it's in a great condition and then keeping it in a good condition because of the way that you know how to circulate, how you know that those materials are going to keep it healthy? But John, could you expand on that a little bit, on the science behind that we use?
Yeah, and you said it best. I mean, we meet or exceed well. We work with them. We put our CTO on their advisory board so we can, we're helping them increase, making the well homes even more efficient. We meet or exceed lead on everything that we build. We're so far past even there. The things that we do, far exceed what's required to be LEED certified. But you talk about the organic building materials. So say, for instance, the inside of the homes. We had a doctor here in California that him and his wife both suffered from allergies for many years. And they were suffering just from the materials that were in their home. So we did a test, cleared out their entire home, and all the walls were coated with a hemp-based drywall mud. When they moved back in, they had no effects that they were having before the home was coated. So it just shows that, this material works, it's healthier, Those kind of endorsements go a long ways. Got an alarm going off here. And then also on the outside, the stucco, it'll even make your plants and everything in the yard more healthy than using traditional, asphalt stucco. I'm going to shut this off and let you talk for a second while this noise shuts off behind me.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I might just ask about LEED and well, and as John commented, we're certified in both. So we're in pretty good shape there. So
Looks like the alarm went off, so I'm good now.
Yeah, I think this question was interesting too, and it kind of has to do with like what we're doing at Standard as well. Getting that community impact and input before going out and executing initiatives. So, do you have kind of a plan to master plan communities with kind of the input of local communities influencing what that build may or may not be, and how that might work?
Well, absolutely. We work with cities every day. Cities, counties, states, governments, they're coming to us, and we've got some huge projects in California, Florida, Texas, and they're asking us, hey, can we do multi-generational? Can we do workforce housing? So we're specific to the needs, whatever needs are out there. Probably about 2 years ago, I went to my partner Brian and I said, hey, I want to create something. I saw a thing on the news that talked about the homeless housing crisis. It talked about how much money per door they were paying per home in LA just to get a door open. It was over $500,000. So I said, I want to create what we're going to call SH1. It's our affordable housing unit. These units are so unique in a way that they're one piece. There is no site work. When they're delivered to the site, solar, battery, everything's already installed. You stick it in the sun, within 2 hours, the lights will come on, it'll start working. No site work. It's plumbed out the back. All of the sewer, the water goes out the back of the subfloor. So they don't even have to tear up the ground. They could just set this in dirt, set it in a parking lot, have these things up and running in hours. So, we're planning on being part of that solution. These are under 100,000 complete with solar, battery, everything already installed. So, I mean, it's a fifth of what the average city, state are spending to get these doors open.
yeah, and you talk about the efficiency of making it a microgrid community on top of it. That's a game changer right there, because you're not just serving that particular community instance, but you can connect it up with other microgrid communities and serve together. So
yeah, one part that I did not mention is so say with our factories, or say with our Bahia Village community, say we have the 10 factories up and running, and we're looking at one right now. We're working with the state of Wisconsin. They've got a huge housing shortage. They've had major businesses move in, and they can't even get people to work because they don't have nowhere to live. So, with those kind of things, we're pushing forward to really come up with the solution for, each specific area.
So obviously we our firm, our DAO, we run on blockchain, and that's a big thing for us. And like, how would S2A and the components of the builds that y'all are doing, how can that potentially kind of fit in, maybe from an energy, from a ESG? Is this something that you guys have been thinking about?
We have been, and that's part of the reason why we're kicking off the marketplace. We think it would be, a great burn mechanism for StandardDAO, and so other ways that we can get involved with getting this product out there, and monetizing it with cryptocurrency, and all of those different levels that come into that.
we were even talking, Aaron, I was thinking about you because we were even talking about the real estate and the metaverse and things like that, and how can we link the real Bahia villages to virtual Bahia villages and millennial villages and communities and things like that, and StandardDAO, how can all that play into an impact of that? And there's almost like no limit. There's like an infinity of possibilities when you're working in this space and you're helping the real life planet and the virtual planet become conscious, you know, and because we're so education based, I think it'd also be a tremendous way to educate people, right? So people could virtually go work in that metaverse and virtually learn the industry and then come into the real world and practice it in true construction form. So there's no limit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it takes me back to a couple of the questions before, in just how customizable are the homes that you guys are pumping out? And do you use 3D printing, or how does this actually really work?
Well, we don't use 3D printing. 3D printing, you see a lot of it. It's still not as efficient as volumetric. You know, the 3D printing is great, but you know, you still have to go in and put all the physical components, you know, the plumbing, the electrical. So the way that we do it, you know, where we can finish a home, you know, every 2 hours, you know, it takes a long time for that 3D printer to print out a house. So, you know, it's still a huge advantage for modular.
Do they sustain 200-mile-an-hour winds too?
And
What
so,
was the other part of that question?
oh yeah, so when you are, let's say that 2,200 square foot home, like a standard or even the SH1, how customizable is it, and how does that process even work?
Okay, so we do our standard homes. Sorry, that alarm is back on in the building, but bear with me, guys. We have I mentioned Lance Lowry, our in-house architect. He can design anything. And any of you who have dealt with an architect know how expensive they can be. We'll design a custom home from scratch for $2 a square foot. Unheard of. And there's no, it's not like you're going out and paying structural engineering and things on top of that, because that's all done by us. So completely customizable. We take people that send us a napkin or a piece of paper with their drawing, and we bring it to life. And even any of our homes, like if you go on our website and pick out a home from our gallery and you want to change something for a small fee, we'll break off a 4-hour, 8-hour window for the architect, and you pay that and we'll customize it however you want.
Yeah, I mean, think about the only limit is five stories, and then, you know, going up vertical, and then from a design perspective, use your imagination, because the modules are modules, so they're 6-sided, so you can bust out the ceiling and have, you know, 10-foot ceilings if you want, whatever you want to do there, and then bust out sides and have open room areas. You can and 90% is done inside the factory and 10% is style. So you start looking at the 10%, you can make the outside whatever you want. So you now have Spanish Mediterranean, whatever you want to have as that exterior to, you know, whatever flavor you like.
No, Dean and John, this makes a lot of sense. You know, and Ahmad, he said it, you know, it makes you wonder why LA and San Francisco isn't using these kinds of solutions to solve homeless crises in their areas right now. I do have a question specifically, you know, around Standard, and what made you kind of jump on board as advisors for Standard? Where did you see the potential there?
Well, for me, when Jason Graham brought us and introduced us to you and your team, you know, we had already been having many conversations about getting into this space. So it wasn't anything new to us. And, you know, when we heard your ideals and, you know, what you guys stand for, it made perfect sense for us to try to, you know, bridge this relationship. And, you know, we're happy to be part of the team, and we're looking forward to the future of, you know, working with you guys on, you know, so on all these different projects, Bahia Village projects, the different products from solar and organic building materials, and getting those out to the masses, and, you know, getting them out there on the blockchain and all, and, you know, in that space. That's where we're headed, and, you know, that's where the future's at. We know it as well as you do.
Yeah, and for me, it was funny because I'm a tech junkie, and I've bought into and have helped you know, a lot of different blockchain and crypto platforms, esports, gaming, etc. I'm an NFT junkie. I just, you know, even before NFTs, I was a collector of many things that now, if I had time, I'd turn them into NFTs. But it's just fascinating watching the whole new world, and then the combination of the metaverse and things like that. And coincidentally, I was talking to one of my buddies who's head of Microsoft Gaming about you know, we have these Lux mods that go in the backyards for personal space. And I was talking about gaming mods. I said, you know, where they would come fully installed with Xbox, they'd be branded surround sound, soundproof, so the neighbors couldn't hear. Big screen TVs, gaming chairs, throw a kegerator in there. You know, next thing you know, you got like the ultimate, you know, gaming piece, and then all of a sudden, you know, you guys come along, and I was just like, wow, I was just thinking about this, and how would it be to integrate all this with a DAO, and what would that look like? And so I think with all the great minds that you guys have on board, and then adding us to the party, and I just see a lot of synergies. Like I said, Aaron, I even took the liberty of starting to book meetings with some other advisors, because it's almost like I can't wait. So I just want to start networking and talking and sharing ideas with everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah, Metaverse Pod. Look, Joseph just typed that in.
Yep,
We're gonna have a
absolutely.
Metaverse Pod. Well, and we'll have another one of these, because I'm really into time travel, and that's another whole segment. So we'll get into that later.
yeah, metaverse and all the different ideas of bringing even the Bahia village or any other, you know, village into the metaverse, and how that could be very impactful. That is a whole that's a whole call in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
and
we'll partner up with Tesla and have cars driving through there. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah, and we are launching our tiny homes next month in March. So
Right.
you'll be able to buy a tiny home from us, and you can pick it up and set it in the backyard, or we can deliver it already on wheels. Just roll up to the factory in your truck and drive away.
What's the footage on a tiny home?
Yeah.
They average about 420 feet.
Yeah.
And what would that average price be for one of these?
Oh, probably about $60,000-$70,000.
Oh my gosh.
Very affordable.
Wow. Okay.
And we're looking at doing tiny home communities just like Bahia Village, where, you know, we're going to be, you know, focusing on the millennials, and, you know, doing some communities that are, you know, really designed for them, with all the things that they like, you know, outdoor entertainment areas for concerts, you know, areas where food trucks can pull up and have vending, you know, for events, and, you know, the dog parks, you know, all the different things. But yeah, we're definitely moving that direction as well. We've already scouted out a couple communities up near the Bay Area, where we're going to do our first tiny home community, more than likely, and another one in Florida. And we're looking at those with the land and everything, the whole buying into the community for like $199,000. You're a homeowner in the Bay Area.
Imagine that.
That's talk about making magic happen, right? Like that's can't even imagine that. That's insane.
Jared's like, how do I get on the waiting list for that?
I have been actually shifting it from I've been wanting to buy a house, but now I'm like, I want to buy a plot of land so I can just buy one of your houses, throw it on there. It's going to be amazing.
Or start your own community. Just get a permit so you can have 4 of them sitting on there, and you can have your buddies there too.
Airbnb.
I've had that exact conversation. So
there you go. That's the
And you know what's crazy about this, guys, is it's not just the Bay Area. Like I said, I have this exact conversation you know, in Montana, Texas. It's universal. There's need everywhere of all of the things that we're talking about on this call. So I think that's the consciousness that we want to bring to the planet, is to say, okay, what are the possibilities? What do we need? How can we help each other? How can we make it a healthier place, more sustainable, not just for the planet, but for the people, and work together on this? So that's why we're here with StandardDAO, and I think it's an opportunity for all of us to partner even beyond this. So.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, you know, the circular economy that you're talking about, you know, bringing all these aspects on chain so that it's also, you know, visible, it's public, people can see exactly everything that's going on. That's exactly, you know, that's what we're all about. And, you know, transparency, it's of utmost importance. And so, yeah, No, John, Dean, this was great. We just hit the time. This is perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to do this again. This was fun. The time went fast.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Thanks
Yeah.
again.
Well, thank you for
us.
having us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks
Thank you guys
everybody
so
for
much.
tuning in.
All
Thanks a
right,
lot,
guys,
guys.
have a good evening. And thank you to everybody in the audience and whoever's listening to the recording. So,
Yeah, thanks for all the questions.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize.
yeah, the questions were great. Spot on.
Great questions.
Awesome.
Thanks again,
Going
guys.
today.